Hi, I'm Zigala, also known as the Art Angel, sometimes just plain old angel, sometimes anti-angel. And I was just thinking about how healing happens in the body when we get out of our own way. And there's this growing idea in our culture that we need someone else to heal us. Healthcare is considered a necessity, and I too have been looking at jobs. It's like a dirty word to me a little bit. I love to work, mind you, but the idea of working for other people, I actually even love working for other people. What I don't love is having to conform to a certain way of being, way of acting, when it doesn't necessarily correlate to the job being done, or it doesn't necessarily help anyone. And related to that is a lot of standard practice in our medical industrial complex, as I like to call it. And so many people work these jobs becoming inauthentic or being inauthentic for, a third to a half of their days, their lives, in order to have access to, I'm going to use air quotes, medical care, because it's not that I'm against having care or even medical care. It's that a lot of what we call medical care these days is part of that conformity process and not necessarily aimed at helping people feel better or live better or be more vibrant. There's this trade-off going on between living longer, sometimes at the expense of living better. And I'm positive that I'm biased for many good reasons. I was diagnosed with autoimmune disorders, several of them, when I was like 12, pre-puberty, and I lived with chronic hives and rheumatoid arthritis and Hashimoto's. The rheumatoid arthritis was since I was 12, the hives for 12 years, from 12 to about 24, fairly consistently, and then only a few times since then. But the Hashimoto's I was diagnosed with in my 30s and is still an issue. And I've just always had this hypersensitive or overactive immune system, which tends to attack myself, attack itself, attack my body. And back when I was first diagnosed, autoimmunity was something pretty much no one had heard of. And now a lot of people have heard of it, but I think a lot of people still don't really understand it. And in fact, even those of us who live with it and understand it to a higher degree don't, like, if you start to dive into it, you'll see that autoimmunity is sort of a catch-all phrase that our medical system uses to label things that we don't fully understand. Diabetes is often, not always, there are different types of diabetes, but anytime the body is attacking itself in a way that doesn't seem proportionate to what's going on. Now, I suspect that there are hidden viruses, that there are reasons, just like there are reasons for a person's behavior, even if they're acting hypersensitive or hyper emotional, as I have at many times in my life. There are reasons for that. Sometimes it's the way our nervous system is wired. Sometimes it's past trauma. Many times it's a little from column A and a little from column B, so to speak. So it's complex and nuanced. And I think our immune systems are the same way. So over the decades of living with autoimmunity and studying a lot, learning a lot, I went to pre-med school. I went to Chinese medicine school for both of those for about a year and a half, a pretty intense study. I was a massage therapist for 12 years altogether, licensed, and doing continuing ed classes throughout that time. I have a level 1 yoga instructor certification and most of a level 2 completed. So throughout my life, I have studied numerous various strategies for healing and different forms of therapy. And throughout all of that, I've come back around to see that the body naturally wants to heal itself, even a body that is being accused of being hypersensitive or having, attacking itself. It's in an attempt to heal itself. And often there's something in the way, something blocking us internally. And sometimes it could be something, air quotes, foreign, like a virus or bacteria or an overgrowth of something. It could also be, as I mentioned, a way that we're wired, some malformation or difference, divergence in our nervous system. But a lot of times it's also thoughts. It's our beliefs that gets wired into us in its own way, or they get wired into us in their own way. And that impacts our chemistry, the way our body reacts to things. And again, it's complex and nuanced. But coming back around to the point I was trying to get at is that I really, in all these decades of being various degrees of healthy and unhealthy, have learned over and over again that the body naturally heals if I can stop getting in my own way, stop hurting it, basically. And unfortunately, I think our medical system often gives us basically poisons, chemotherapy, surgery where we cut things out. And I'm not 100% against either of those things, but I think that they're overused, and I think that they often cause more harm than good. And I want to add that I'm not at all saying that doctors and nurses and health practitioners are intentionally harming people. I absolutely believe that the vast majority, 99.99999% of healthcare providers are there because they really, really want to help. They really, really want to, help people heal. Unfortunately, the reason I dropped out of medical school before getting fully into it after a year and a half of pre-med studies was that I saw how the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies literally own the medical schools these days. They are the main funders. They are the main influencers of the textbooks and what gets taught. And so in order to become a mainstream healthcare provider, one has to buy into the idea of pharmaceutical prescriptions and surgery as the main methodology of treatment. And again, I'm not 100% against any of those, but I don't think they should be our first method or our main method of treatment, because back before we had the medical industrial complex, people used fasting and prayer and ritual and ceremony. And even though I'm not religious, I do believe that the way we think, our focus, and often that surrender that happens when people pray is an important aspect of healing because it's part of how we get out of our own way. And things like fasting would probably cure 80% of the chronic diseases that are in this culture right now, in this country, and probably many others. Now, I haven't done the math or the research, so that's just an off-the-cuff number, but I have thought about it a lot. And even just my own life, it would probably cure. Now, I'm not talking about fasting haphazardly, although there is a lot of research to show that intermittent fasting, which is just not eating constantly 24 hours a day, giving your body a break, like a 12 or more hour break, 12 to 16 hour can be ideal in order to let the body get into that healing stage, because when we're digesting, that's taking a lot of energy. Between eating and digesting, we're using up a lot of the body's time and energy. And then when we're over consuming, as so many of us are, certainly I am prone to in this life, we live in such an abundant country where it's very easy to overconsume. And it's encouraged via marketing, via so many signs and signals in our lives. So one has to actually make effort to not overconsume in our culture, which is an odd, interesting problem to have, isn't it? When I think about it. But it is remarkable how much better I feel when I cut back on my overconsumption. Maybe I haven't mastered it completely, but lately I just started, I don't even know if I want to call it intermittent fasting exactly, but just not eating past 9 o'clock at night, because that's the time when I tend to binge the most. And just recently went back to trying to hold off on breakfast until noon to give my body that extra time. And I've waxed and waned. It really depends. If I'm struggling and stressed, a lot of times I find I do better with breakfast. However, as I've been healing now for several years in a more healing phase, coming off the back of a very catastrophic phase between the pandemic and the meltdown of a relationship and hitting menopause, all piling up at the same time. It was a tough phase for me to get through, and thankfully I'm feeling quite a bit better. A couple years of sobriety, a year or so into menopause, half a decade past the last dissolving of last catastrophic end of a beautiful relationship. I find myself feeling stable enough to get back to that intermittent fasting, let's call it, for lack of a better word. And it is incredible how much better I'm already starting to feel just in a couple days of that. And a while back, I wore a glucose monitor for off and on for a year, and that's part of what helped me give up drinking alcohol for the probably the final time. Sometimes I still get tempted, but wearing that glucose monitor, continuous glucose monitor, really helped me see how much different, not just different ways of eating and different foods, but also my stress levels really have a lot to do with my blood sugar levels in both directions. Having high blood sugar can cause more stress, and more stress can cause higher blood sugar levels by interrupting digestion, by influencing the chemistry in the body, back around to how much our beliefs influence our chemistry, which then influences our health. It's all related. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling now, but I just wanted to ramble a little bit about the idea of how much our body can heal itself when we get out of the way and stop overfeeding it. Movement is a big part of that. Of course, it's a lot easier to move more when we feel better and when we're not busy over consuming and digesting all the time. For me, I notice a definite decrease in joint pain, muscle pain, sharpness of those pains when I cut out the excess sugar. Doesn't mean I can't have any. I mean, sugar is delicious and my body definitely craves it, and I definitely have some psychological attachments to sugar. It's a treat for me, a reward in many frames of mind, in my mind, and also at least not binging on sugar at night, which is what I was doing. After I gave up drinking, I found myself just basically replacing late night drinking with binging on sugar and simple carbs, and that led to me really not feeling much better than I was feeling when I was drinking a lot of alcohol. Sometimes even worse, because there's a social component that I haven't quite figured out yet. Alcohol was definitely a social lubricant, as they call it, for me. And sweets and eating can be that too, but I find, overall I'm less happy with my body when I'm overeating than even when I'm drinking a lot. So I'm not planning on going back to drinking a lot, having spent a lot of time now getting over that. And as I mentioned, wearing that glucose monitor really showed me how that was impacting my liver in a negative way. And I've watched a lot of people in my life drink themselves to death, essentially. And so I know you can seem fine for a long time, up to the time when you're not fine and organs start to fail, and death can happen relatively quickly, but also agonizingly slowly. And I don't want to go out like that. So there you have it. I also don't want to go out, diabetic and having heart issues due to overconsumption and lack of movement. So I hope you don't want to go out that way too. A lot of Americans do go out that way, and it's tragic, really, because not only is it a painful and sad way to go, but the years leading up to that are diminished. Our vibrance is diminished. Our ability to do things, especially do things with other people, but also with ourselves, follow our dreams, develop the lives we love, is greatly diminished when we're feeling ill. And much of that illness comes from overconsumption in our current culture. So, yep, there you have it, my 2 cents on the matter. Yeah, I'll have more to say about that in the near future, and I welcome your questions and comments. I still have some online communities that have been a little bit stalled lately as I've been focusing on other things, but you can find links to them. I'm still paying to keep them alive, and I've been getting back into some podcasting, which I'm excited about, and still brainstorming about creativity workshops that I really want to bring into my life. So we'll see how much of that I pull off now that I'm feeling a little bit better. I hope that you are taking good care of yourself, getting out of your own way so that you can thrive instead of just survive. I thank you for being you, and I thank you if you like and subscribe. If you do, then you'll be seeing me soon. Ciao for now.